Welcome to Tips, the Townsend Institute podcast series, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast shares stories of leadership, coaching, and counseling experiences that have shaped the lives and careers of our guests, who then provide tips aimed toward helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Dr. Ashlie Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 55 of the podcast. And in addition to that, we're celebrating 2 years of tips. What a ride it's been, bringing some research, insights, and of course tips related to counseling, coaching, and leadership. Today's episode is no different as we cover one of the most asked about topics, book writing.
That's right, Ashlie. We're starting off year 3 with the one and only Dr. Townsend to hear about his experience and methods for book writing. As a best-selling author of over 24 books, he'll share the system and tips that work for him, which hopefully will also work for our listeners who have a book idea they're dreaming up. Here's our first episode of year 3. Let's get started.
And welcome back, everyone, to the Townsend Institute podcast series. Gilbert and I are here with our founder, Dr. John Townsend. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Hey, everybody.
Well, today we are jumping into a very important topic of conversation, one in which many of our students and Townsend alumni have requested, and that is interviewing John, who has now written upwards of 45 books. I know, can you believe it? 45, you heard me right. A couple of which are in process right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but kind of coming to John to talk about his process, his background as a best-selling author, what his system of writing kind of looks like. And he, of course, is at this place where a number of your books have become bestsellers, household names. So let's start from the very beginning, John, in what prompted you to start writing books?
Actually, Ashley, it was an editor friend of mine called me. At this time, this was like a long time ago, Henry Cloud and I were doing a lot of speaking, and we had a psychiatric mental health system program we were running, but we also were on the radio a lot. And we were doing a Christian counseling show, the Meyer Clinic West show. And so there was a lot of, we had a lot of interactions with people who had questions and problems and this sort of thing. And it was going really well. People liked how it was going. And so a friend who was an editor at a publisher that I'd known for many years called and said, "Why don't you write a book?" And I said, "Well, it sounds like a lot of work. What else do you want to talk about?" The editor's name, and my friend's name is Steve Webb, and he was working for a publisher called Nav Press, Navigator Press at the time. And we'd known each other since we were both in seminary. So I knew him from way back, and we always enjoyed talking about books and this sort of thing. So that was the connection. And he said, "No, it's a good time for it, and I can help you do it." And so he flew in, and he and Barbie and I talked, come to the house, and showed me what it would be like in the process, and that what editors can help you, and how do you write a book. And I started doing it, and I got something out of it. It was a lot of work, but I felt these pistons inside, like creativity and ideas that I had, and putting them all in one place. And how does this help people grow? And how does this help them change? And how do you communicate the concepts? But that's where it all started. It wasn't me having a passion for a book, it was somebody calling me. So I said, "Sure, I'm willing to listen to all this." And so Steve flew down and met with myself and Barbie and just talked about what the writing world was like, and that there'd be a lot of support for it. And I had no idea. I'm certain had written, in college and grad school, but he just said, "It can be done, and we'll help you." And I thought, why not?
Yeah, as you think about this now, after writing 45-ish books or so, I mean, we might be up to, I don't know how many, you've been a little while, might be up to 50 here soon.
50 by the time this podcast comes out. I mean, he's just cranking them out.
So
I'd be doing a lot of this coffee thing, but that was it.
That's true. What do you think? What is your typical process when you start a new book, or the initial brainstorming behind it all?
Well, let me first say to anybody in our listening family who's interested in this thing, because y'all said you were getting a lot of questions about it. I mean,
Hmm.
people that have a passion for writing, they've got an idea. Um, Welcome, and it's a great day to do this. It's probably the best day I've ever seen in terms of seasons of life and this sort of thing, because it's doable. And so the process I'm going to tell you is something I worked out that when I have friends over the years that said, I've got a book inside me, it might be about it might be about business or it might be about leadership or it might be about growth or spirituality, but I've got one inside me and what do I do? So I worked out a system that people have been able to say it was effective. And it goes broadly like this. You spend probably a day. Got to take some time off of work somehow, and it might be time on the weekends or whatever. Here, but spend a day brainstorming what you want to do. Now, some people do that better by themselves. People do it better with others. My suggestion is kind of go half and half. Start with yourself because people influence us greatly for better, we hope. But start with what's in your head and what God put in there, and just start mapping it on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. Get away, go to nature, whatever. And for at least half of that time, if not all that time, um, what is it? And you want to there's a come away with it. And the come away with you want to come away with an idea.
Hmm.
And one of the problems of writing is that you feel so much you want to say everything at once and it gets
Hmm.
crazy. And you've got to be kind of like a little bit ruthless with yourself. You've got to come that way with a big idea. And the
Hmm.
big idea you got to say in like one sentence, maybe no more than 10 words. And people go, no, there's so much to it. I understand. But you have to be ruthless and then you can go lots of volume. You come away with that and then get some people to advise you, just friends that care about you, and they'll say, that was nuts, or change it, or wow, that's hitting me. But make sure you run it by people that you trust. Next thing you do is the big thing that I learned was to try as much as possible to stop working for a week. I can't do that. I got 4 kids and I understand. And if you can't, you can't. I'm just giving you the top line and you can morph it to your own life and your own schedule. If you can take 5 days off and, go to a hotel or go to nature or whatever again, and your goal in that 5 days is to come away with an outline. And this is critical this is the core of the whole thing. Not an outline like, oh, write a 3-page outline of XYZ like we did in college. You want to come out with a detailed, obsessively detailed, structured outline. And it'll end up being I think mine was 20 or 30 pages for
Hmm.
one book or my last book, where you not only have the big idea that's kind of your North Star, but
Hmm.
you also have what are the chapters of each one? What is unique about each chapter that's not redundant to another one? And then in each chapter, what's the purpose of that chapter? What are the stories you're going to tell in that chapter about others or about yourself? Because life is about story. People want to hear a story. So, a story
Hmm.
about an example with you or somebody you knew. What are the stories? And then, what are the principles you want to teach? And if it's a Christian market book, what are the Bible verses you want to use? If it's not a
Hmm.
Christian market book, it's a different thing. Maybe, sources of wisdom or whatever. And because a lot of Christians write books that they want the world to read, and so they write them a different way. And then the skills or takeaways or action steps you want them to have. So it's those 4 or 5 aspects in every single chapter. And it takes a long time, but goodness gracious, it's just saved my life. And the reason is, then when you're getting ready after that to start your regular writing after that week, the book is a typing job.
Hmm.
Because you're sitting there on your laptop or whatever, and on the right side is your Word document, on the left side is your outline. You just follow it. Okay, here's
Yeah.
the story about the boy with the kite. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, here's that thing about the principle. In fact, is that relationship drives everything, and boom, 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 and you'll always kind of morph it because the creative process says try it this way. But you've got this structure, this skeleton, this framework right in front of you, and it's annotated and detailed enough that you can't get lost. And if you don't do it that way, and I have done this, if you make it a 3-page outline, you'll find yourself 3 months later in the process reviewing it and then going, I think I said that 2 months ago. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
spent 5 pages on the same idea, and you do these wraparounds and reversals, and it's a mess, but not with a detailed outline. So that's part one, is get the part one and two. Get the brainstorm, get the pithy purpose statement, the big idea, and the outline. That's the beginning of the process.
What was always your safe haven? Where would you go to do your outlining? You talked about maybe going out into nature, going to a hotel. Did you have a place that really helped your creative juices flow?
I've had many places. I need variety.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's been a hotel. I like the ocean a lot. So a hotel near the water, East Coast, West Coast. I did one in Antarctica.
Oh,
It was
well,
a
that's
book that
cool.
I wrote called "Where Is God?" Because I was always wondering, if
Yeah.
there's anywhere He's not, maybe it's there. Because where is God in my losses? Where is God, in
Mm.
my pain? And so I
Where is God when I'm freezing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought might be helpful to the brain, and so I took a trip down there on a ice cutting boat and did some of it there, and that was really helpful. But the where some people it's the mountains, and some people it's
Yeah.
the desert, and then some people it's like I got a bunch of kids, I can't get away.
Yeah.
Then you've got to have a room.
Right.
Now
Yeah.
No,
people
I think
can,
you're exactly right. That change of scenery helps. Myself here, I'm a remote employee, so I work from my home. But I notice when I'm tackling a big project, whether it's, writing, I haven't written any books yet, but either little things, sometimes I'll go to the local library,
yeah, stuff
right?
like
Mm.
that.
Free internet. They have a little coffee shop.
And the
Just
famous Starbucks is really good.
Yeah.
But if
absolutely.
you got kids, it's going to be, you got to work it out with your spouse. Now, when's mom or dad available and when we're not?
Right.
Because it's the interruptions are the big problem. Because we know from the neuroscience that the transitions when you go in and out are a big deal. Like
Right.
I'm doing a half day of writing today on
Hmm.
my counseling therapy textbook. And
Yes.
so if you have meetings in between, this today is 4 hours. If you
Hmm.
have meetings in between, your brain takes a certain amount of time to get out of what we're doing and then do
Mhm.
that and have that meeting and then come back in. It's a really inefficient way to do it. So if you can have blocks of time, it's a lot better. Which takes us to the next part, which is now what? Somebody says, "Okay, I got an outline now, but I got
Yeah.
to write."
Yeah.
I think the average book is, I don't know, 50, 60,000 words. Mine are about 65. The one I'm
Hmm.
writing on now it's because it's a textbook is 100,000.
Mm.
Um, is you got to map out how much time you have and when you want to have an endpoint. We always have to have structure to this.
Right. Right.
And some people say, well, I got lots of time because I'm in between things or whatever. Great. But what I've found, and this is not research based, it's just anecdotally, is if you can type, that helps.
A
And if
little
you,
bit.
This is a
well,
good
some
skill.
people can't. And so I've got
Yes.
friends that will go around with a little like their iPhone recorder and just talk into it,
Oh, absolutely.
send it to a dictation company,
Hmm.
and then that's not a problem at all. Lots of people do that. But if you can type, um, and you want to write that many words, so if you do the math, guys, and this is very rough, if you're a 400, and I don't know if I'm being realistic or not with our listening family. So, tweak it. You might be 5 words an hour. You might be 600 words an hour. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. This has got to be just an average. It's also going to depend a lot on the content,
Right.
Yeah.
right? In which you're
Absolutely.
writing. Yeah.
Absolutely. But let's say you're writing at a clip of about 400 and you've got 8 hours a week. If you've got that kind of time, I mean, it's a
Hmm.
commitment. We're talking about for a 65,000 word book, about 20 weeks. So what's that, like half a year, 6 months?
Hmm.
And then what you've got is something that's called a first draft. It's very rough, but then there's the editing process. But in terms of writing the first thing, that's kind of how it goes. And the other thing I found is that big blocks are better than little blocks. I used to be able to write on an airplane for like 45 minutes, and it just kind of wasn't very efficient. So right now, my best is about a 4 hour clip. After that, I get tired or I get bored or whatever. But you might say, "Oh my gosh, the juices are flowing.
Hmm.
Keep writing." Whatever.
Yes.
If you're writing, keep writing because the hardest thing to do is to get it out of there on paper. So keep writing if you feel it.
Is there a certain
Absolutely.
Yeah, and is there a certain time of day? I mean, because everybody talks about. I mean, are you a morning person, John, or are you afternoon, or when do you find your kind of your peak time?
The ideal for me is mid-morning to mid-afternoon
Okay.
because, get up, work out, have your quiet time, just kind of get your coffee going. There's better energy there. And then by mid-afternoon, say 2-ish, I start to flag a little, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of work there. And I'd rather there's some of my afternoon friends say, no, that's when I gear up. Mornings, no, and some people say, no, I'm good from 7 a.m. to 11. So it's really over the map. But for me, I'm right in the middle, 10 to 10
Oh,
to 2.
absolutely. I think our listeners, you have to find what works for you. And at that
Hmm?
point, you know how you were with a student, right? For
Yep.
some, it's waking up at 4 a.m. to get their homework done. For
Yep.
others, it's staying up until 4 a.m. to get their work
Got it.
done. So
Got it.
you have to find, I remember a good colleague and friend, Dr. Chip Espinoza, who worked
Yeah.
alongside of
Oh, yeah,
us,
Chip.
a
Mhm.
big scholar in the organizational psychology field. I remember him telling me a story about when he was tackling a new book, he would fly to New York City and he would
Yeah.
stay in downtown New York City, which, obviously a far cry from the beach or the mountains, but he liked it because it's a city that never sleeps. So if he was
Right.
staying up all night and then needed a break to go down and get a piece of pizza or something like that, he could, and the
You
city
could.
was awake. And I mean, that might seem crazy for some people, but man, that's what worked for him. So
Right. And I've got friends who live in an apartment in Ohio, and they got
exactly.
kids. And
Yes.
so their getaway is these are the hours the kids I can't play with the kids.
Right, right.
And they put their headphones on and they create that space in their head. So, you adapt to the resources, but the whole idea is the brain needs to focus when you're writing. You take your breaks, but it's
Absolutely.
got to focus.
Absolutely. No, that's so great. Okay, well, we talked a little bit then about just kind of really this is the mindset that goes into the writing process.
Mhm.
Um, Another question: what strategies do you use to keep your writing both engaging and informative? Right? I think that's hard because you want maybe some research underpinnings to it, but at the same time, we talked about how the storytelling and the examples are big. How do you find a way to balance both of them?
Guys, most writers are readers, and we just love the written word and love experiencing that. So the best thing to do is to get the book in your genre that really has engaged you. Now, you may say, I want to write a book on physics. That means don't get Chronicles of Narnia. It's a different thing. Or it might be a book on, maybe it might be a novel, a mystery novel. Then get the best, whoever. Stephen King that you like and then read that book, the one book that you've kind of kept going back to and start looking at where are the stories and where are the thoughts? Like you said, Ashley, where is the engagement and where's the information? And you'll pick it up. And generally speaking, a book that's a technical nonfiction book got to have fewer stories because you're trying to get some important information across. But we don't live in an age when I was going through my textbooks in my own graduate training, where you could just have fact, 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 fact. People just kind of get
Mhm.
bored. So they do
Hmm.
need some stimulation, but it won't be at the level of a really cool, book that you're writing about your adventures when you were traveling in Rome.
John, I know when you're thinking about this engagement, you're thinking about the detailed outline, I've been taking notes because this is all really, really helpful. That if I would
Are
ever
you
want,
saying you got a book in you, Gilbert?
yeah, I'm hoping it's not just a coloring book, right? I'm hoping it's a book with words in it and stuff. So,
It'll have stickers, though, I'm sure.
well, you got to have stickers at the end. I mean, that just makes it a lot better. Um, but what about when you have the block, right? The writer's block, or do you have any kind of rituals or anything that kind of keeps you moving, or when you hit that kind of block, what moves you past it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and there's such a thing as a writer's block. It exists, and you can't just, willpower your way out of. A block is a block. It could be for different reasons. If it's a lifestyle reason or you got a problem or crisis, absolutely go take care of it. But I had a book that was hard to write. Just the content was difficult, and I really didn't. I really found myself questioning a lot of things. Had to do extra research. What I did was I set up an accountability group. Townsend Institute's
Hmm.
built in relationship.
Mhm.
And it wasn't like a mean accountability group. It wasn't like a parent scolding you saying, how many words you write today? And be a curmudgeon. I don't do well with curmudgeons. But I made a little spreadsheet of about 5 people that are just very near and dear to me. And I said, I need you to sign yourself up to what day a week I can call you for 5 minutes. Maybe
Mm,
at 6 o'clock at night or right when you get ready to eat dinner or in the afternoon. I just need a 5 minute conversation with you guys every day. And so one person say I'm Tuesday, one person would say I'm Thursday or whatever. And I would call and they'd say, okay, how'd it go? And I would either say, oh my gosh, it was juicy. I've written 1,000 words and I want to read it to you. And it might be something they don't know about. It doesn't matter. But they would say, here's something that's interesting about that. And they'd really engage in a positive way, like, wow, that was kind of an interesting thought. Haven't thought about that way. Or you really drove that home. And I would feel their energy flowing into me. We would now call those relational nutrients. I'm feeling
mhm,
their enthusiasm and their encouragement flowing into me because now we're together, even though we're on the phone talking about my little baby, and they're going, this is pretty cool stuff. And I start to like it again. And then the block would flow. But there were times when I'd call them, they'd say, how'd it go? And I'd say, zero. It's
mm,
been a sucky day and I don't have anything. And I'd be kind of embarrassed. And they would go, okay, it's zero. So why does it zero? Well, it's
mm.
zero because of X, Y, Z. Okay. Well, look, I remember the last time you talked to me, you did this. What'd you do with this? And I'd say, well, I did this solution, this problem. They say, okay, I'm just remembering that, and that was helpful, and I believe in you. And I would still feel better, even with a zero. No shame. They'd say, I know you can do this. They did it for probably a month. And I would write more and more and more. And by the end of 4 weeks, I said, okay, we can disband the little group. Thank you. And that saved my book.
That's awesome. I love that. I love how you talk about leaning on others, that support system that even if you're writing a book on your own as a solo author, it doesn't have to be a solo endeavor, right? Lean on those. And chances are, if you've gotten to that point where you have the idea, you have the outline, there are others that are going to be able to speak into that. I'm thinking specifically about some of the students in our program. I have the honor of teaching some of them right now in their capstone class, and they're embarking on these big research projects. And to see them work together and lean on one another is an awesome part of the process.
And just a little warning on top of this, guys, don't go too far down the line without somebody reviewing.
Absolutely.
Because if you go all the way down, you've written a ton of pages, and somebody comes in that says, there's a critical thing this is not in there. You don't want to go back and redo it. So make sure people that you trust that they understand the ideas. Like they would go to, you guys say, let me look at it. It saves so much time to kind of nip it in the bud before you get too far down the line.
John, you've done such a great job of walking us through the first few steps here, starting big with that kind of overarching topic, that North Star, um, the importance of that really detailed outline, talking a little bit about overcoming the writer's block. So now we want to know, how do you know when your book is done? Do you have any signs or feelings that help indicate that your project is complete?
Yeah, it's called word count.
Okay, well, that
And
helps.
I'm not being funny about it because that can change, but humans, we have lots of words and you can get lost. I've had friends that didn't have a word count in their head or a deadline, and they would say, I say, how's your novel going? Well, it's been 10 years now, and I would say, what are you doing? Are you like tweaking your prepositions now? And they'd say, well, I just had another idea, and it's wordus infinitus, no workingus. And so you have to have a structure. And sometimes, if you can just say, I just say, start in the beginning, say, I want a book that people can read in an airplane. And I think
Okay.
I've got that right. I think it's in the 50,000 range on a 3 or 4 hour flight. Or I want a kid's book, which is much shorter, and find out what that is. Or I want a book that people can read, you know, go through something that's very simple, and maybe it's going to be, I don't know, 40 pages. Or I really want to write the last word on this, could be many hundreds of pages. So you've got to research that first. The second thing is, once you've got that parameter of words or pages, I think the page is about 300-ish words. But once
Hmm.
you've got that in your head, um, once you've got that in your head and the outline does what it's supposed to do, just make sure the big problem is you'll make your first few chapters way too long. That's what we always do. It's like a speech. And then you're cramming in the other ones. And I've had that problem, and I still have it sometimes. So just make sure you discipline yourself to say, okay, I want to write 12 chapters on this, and I want to write 50,000, 60,000 words. So how many, do the math. And a first chapter can be a little bit longer, but the big thing is keep it pretty much in range. And then you think, oh, there's another idea. You got to discipline yourself and say, I got to get to the next one. And this is where
Mm.
the statement good enough is very helpful psychologically. It's
Hmm.
not going to be War and Peace. It's not going to be the next Shakespeare, unless maybe you are. But really, it's going to be a good book, we hope. The way I look at it, guys, is remember that phrase good enough. So that chapter one is good enough. And I'll put some other ideas on the side in another file that I can get to if I can, but go to the next one, next one. And your goal is a good enough chapter, not a perfect chapter, because that can get you in trouble with if you have any kind of perfectionistic tendencies at all.
And John, I think that's really insightful because I believe, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, when you and Henry did a book, didn't you, your first one, didn't you have to edit that a lot? Was it Boundaries or one of them that you brought it in and it was way too long and you had to cut it out?
Yeah, it was close to 1,000 pages. And so
Oh,
the
wow.
publisher saw that and said, "Oh, you want to write a coffee table book?" We went, "No, we want everybody in the world to read it." And they said they're not going to. So we had to a, cut away a bunch, and it was really painful. But
Oh, yeah.
the other thing though is pruning is always good for us. When you prune, you get down to the essentials that are the real essentials. See, we got a lot of fat off the bone, and it was a better book because of that. But we did keep the other information for using in later.
I was just going to say,
That's
right?
right.
The what you cut or what you have to say no to just might mean a not now. Maybe
Right.
that's your
It's a
second
not
book,
now. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So don't just delete it all, right? So for our listeners, right? Oh, you want to
Writers
keep.
writers should not be deleters. There's enough cloud space for your words. Keep it in there.
There's- Well, speaking of that, so you have written a lot of books with Dr. Henry Cloud here. And so what strategies might you have for folks that say, okay, I really think I need to work with a co-author to make this idea. We kind of have been talking and are on the same page with this.
Yeah, and co-authoring is good. Most of my books, especially in the early days, were well, almost all of them were with Henry, and
Mm.
then it was a great time because we came at the material the same way. We have different things we're thinking, but we pretty much agreed on the overall approach and philosophy and conceptual things. So get somebody that has a different slant than you, but pretty much agrees on the basic structures and ideas. But the way we did in the editing process was we would write odds and evens. So, like I would go chapter 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and he'd write 2, 4, 6, 8, or whatever. And then we would get together, or not to, after the book, but during the book, and we would edit each other's chapters. And you got
Ah,
to know how good a friend you got there because you can't be defensive about your baby. If they say you
yeah.
got an ugly baby, you got an ugly baby. And so we would be kind of brutal with each other, and this makes no sense. Why'd you write that? Well, I don't know. Well, and we kind of did the iron sharpens iron for every chapter for each other, and it really
Mm,
helped. And so you
mm.
can't when you have a co-author, you just can't have any ego in the game. You've got to be able to say, I just need truth here because we're trying to do something that'll change people's lives. Well, it needs to be the best communicated principles, and skills out there. And so we need each other's help.
That's awesome. And for those of you that haven't heard our podcast interview with Dr. Henry Cloud from just a little while back, you can see just how that partnership, not only as co authors, really just evolved into such a close friendship. You should go back and listen to that episode. It was awesome. So, all right, another piece, John, that we should probably talk about, especially in this age that we're in today, is AI. Artificial intelligence and how that is just really changing the landscape of so many areas, including book writing. So, how has this maybe even influenced your writing you're doing today?
Yeah, and it is changing as we speak. I'm retaining someone now to help me to understand how best to make it a better book, and it's very, very, very helpful. But that's going to change too. Um, there are several ways that using an AI app, anything from ChatGPT to the other ones that are on the market. One is in the brainstorming phase. Funny enough, where suppose you want to write a book about parenting.
Hmm.
You dump it in there and say, I want to write a book about parenting with great principles. Give me some ideas. And it'll just shoot out 10 or 12 ideas about what do you do about discipline? What do you do about how to express love? What do you do about problems? What do you do about behavior? What do you do about finding the best in them? And all of a sudden you got ideas there. So the brainstorming phase is helpful. Now, I'm a big fan of it's still got to be your book. So don't
Hmm.
say, write a book for
Mhm.
me on parenting and I'll put my name on it.
Right.
I think there's some ethical problems with all that.
Yeah, it might
Yeah.
be, might be.
Yeah.
Um, but the second part is not only the brainstorming aspects, but in the structuring aspects, like to put your outline in there and say, make it better. And it might say, well, this part should go logically after this part, or maybe, put a nest something in here that wasn't there. And so the structure part is helpful too. And then it's also good just for references. If you're writing a book that involves references, a reference to either research done on something or a book that's done on something that you want because you want to have some credibility because you have references, ask for references. Or sometimes you can ask for Bible references.
Mm.
AI knows the Bible and it can help you with that. And then it also it's able to, when you say, my style is X. Now they're doing stylistic stuff. You can say, I want to make it more humorous, or I want to make sure
Mm.
that there's an air of urgency to this, or I want to be friendly or warm, and it'll tone it up. It really will. It'll do that kind of thing.
Wow,
So
that's
That's
amazing.
that
no, there's
is
just no
that's
reason
remarkable.
not to put stuff into it and say, try this, because a friend of mine who knows this stuff really well, he and I were talking. He said, look at it like a tireless intern. My
Mm.
friend Rob said it's a tireless intern. And so you've got to keep, it's called prompt refining. You got to say, well, it's not quite it. Try it this way, try it this way, because it's listening to you and it's tireless. It wants to do it, but you've got to keep educating it on what you want. But ultimately, it's got to be your words, your concepts, and your tone and your story. So don't cheat on it. You've got to use it as a servant, but it shouldn't be writing the book for you.
John, I mean that is so interesting, right? As you go through AI and now you've got this product and things like that. But the last part seems to be really big, the publishing process. Seems like a challenge. What goes into the publishing process? What should our listeners know when they walk down that path?
Well, remember how we started off our program today saying this is a good time to write? And it's because of self-publishing.
Mm,
Um, Anything from Amazon to a lot of ones that aren't well known, you can just use AI, ask AI where they are. There's just a ton of possibilities. But if you start from the top down, a publisher nowadays, if you want to go with an established publisher, because it's just too much work to self-publish, which I get. Um, most publishers will not accept a manuscript unless it's been agented. Agented meaning that you've established a relationship with a literary agent because they get so many, they won't even
Hmm.
open them up because if they open them up and they don't want it, and then 5 years later, that person sees something that looks like their book in one of the publisher's books, they'll say, you plagiarized. So they're
Mm.
really careful. They just send it back unopened, sadly enough, or if they send it back at all. So small publishers might be able to take an unagented book. So the thing to do is what I found is that to either go with it depends again, is it a Christian book with Christian content or is it a marketplace book? But there are now groups that will coach you on how to get an agent, and there are agents out there. Lots of agents are very busy now, obviously, because they're the keystone to getting into a
yeah.
publisher. But yeah, check out online or just with people in that world, that say, do you know if there's a good organization that will help me to craft what I need to do, get an agent? And here's what the agent needs. If you're going to go the agent route, they're going to probably ask you for either completed manuscript. So you're making a big, commitment of
Hmm.
those 20 weeks, right? Or they'll say, we need an outline of your book and a sample chapter. So you just can't walk in and say, hey, I got a great dream. It doesn't work like that anymore because there's so much talent and interest out there. So
Yeah.
Find out what they need. And these coaching groups or these people that will help you get in with an agent will say, this is what, Susie Smith in New York wants, and here's what she needs. And then if she has a meeting with you, Zoom or whatever, you say, you've already sent in what you've done, and she looks at it. But the second thing they want to know is, do you have a platform? It used to
Oh,
be a
yeah.
good book was a good book. Great American novel, that's great. But now great American novels are going to require a platform. So where do you speak? What's your social media presence? Do you have a following of some sort?
Yeah, following, right,
Yeah.
to help get the word
Yeah,
out.
Yep.
that is extremely important now because of all the demand. So if you go, that's not me, I don't want to do that, then, and I don't want to go to that hassle, it's too much to do, I don't have time, I don't like it, then you want to go to the self-publishing route. And that's when you check out the Amazon model, the other ones, and they'll tell you, okay, we'll do X, but you'll have to pay for X. We'll do the
Mhm,
publishing and we'll do the marketing and we'll
mhm,
get you out on all these channels that we can get you out on. You've got to pay for this. And also, we'll do the editing, you pay for this. And we'll also make the book physically. And so you basically figure out, I can do this part and they'll do that part and you work it. It's all negotiable nowadays. So it could be a time versus money thing. If you
yeah.
want a book, you can have a book these days in a short amount of time because everybody's kind of dialed it in. So that's why I'd say it's a good time to write a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Well, it's great to know that there's so many options,
Very
right?
much.
In ways to do it, depending really on your personality, your time, your resources,
Yes.
and all of that. That's awesome. That's great to know. Well, John, this has been so helpful. We are interested. You've shared a little bit about some projects you have in the pipeline. Obviously, the counseling textbook is well underway. I think you're over the halfway mark, which is certainly something to celebrate. When thinking about your future, aside from helping co-author Gilbert's future coloring book, what other books would you like to write in the future? Do you have
Well,
anything?
actually, yeah, I've got two projects going on right now. I'm writing a technical graduate level book for Christian therapists on the model that we use here at the Institute, the character capacity model, the growth model.
Hmm.
And it's in three sections. It's going to be what's the theory behind this kind of help. And the reason I'm doing it
Right.
this way is because, if you're going to suppose you're studying, you want to go to med school and be a neurologist, right? And so you go to, I don't know, Stanford or Johns Hopkins and you're taking your courses. And neurology is going to say, okay, what's the study? It's going to have three parts. The books are going to have three parts. The theory is going to be what is the structure of the brain? What are the parts? Where they exist? Where's the prefrontal cortex, et cetera? It's going to tell you the structure of the brain and function. The second part of the book, if it's a textbook on the brain in a med school, is going to be diagnosis. What are the diseases of the brain? What goes wrong? What if there's trauma? What if there's an endocrine problem or whatever? So you have the various diseases and disorders. The third part is going to be treatment. Now, what do you do? Do you approach it with medication or do you approach it with some other, form? So I
Hmm.
did the same thing. This book is tentatively called, and by the way, your beginning title is almost never your ending title because things change. But right now, the title
Yeah.
is Transformation: How People Change, Grow, and Heal for Christian Therapists. And so the first part is theory, which is going to be where does this all come from? And I start with Genesis, where there was the creation of a good thing. We're supposed to have a relationship with God, be connected and be attached and know what our responsibilities and boundaries were. And, weren't supposed to have anything to do with evil and all these things. Then the fall happens and bad things happen in our head and our relationships. We don't do it God's way. And then to show how things like depression, anxiety, relationship problems, addictions, PTSD occurred as a result of the fall. So the first part is where does this all come from? That's the theory
Hmm.
part. And it's a lot of understanding that this is not shrink life here. This is the shrink life comes from the Bible. Second part is diagnosis. So when somebody comes in with a depression or an anxiety or a relationship problem or something, as we know here at the Institute, the problem isn't the problem. The problem is a symptom of something
Mm.
else inside someone's character. Is that depression due to aloneness and isolation and disconnection and not being able to take in relational nutrients? Or is that depression because somebody has no boundaries and is always getting walked on and feels guilty about saying no to anybody and they're getting burnt out? Or is that depression because of they're so hard on themselves and perfectionistic that their self-talk is so mean they beat themselves up and judge themselves and that causes depression? Or is that same depression because they feel like an insecure, imposter? They don't fit in the adult world with high functioning people, and so they're
Hmm.
always one down. A same depression can be caused by any of those four things, what we call the growth model: attachment, separation, integration, adulthood. And so, how do you diagnose any problem and look at it from a character level? And then the third
Mm.
part is, okay, now they're coming in your office. You've seen that they're depressed or anxious or got a trauma issue or they've got a problem in a relationship or a substance issue. Now what? And I have a listing of the techniques that we can use. And when I started studying this, I've gone over well over 150 books of the field to look at all this. Um, there's several thousand techniques that therapists use because of all the
Mm.
modalities. So I got it down to what I think are the most important ones that fit with the model and how to do them. That part's very, very practical because people said when I told them when I write the book, they said, make it practical, not just
Yes.
theory
Yeah.
in your head. What
Hmm.
do I do
Hmm.
when? So we've got, what do you do on an experiential level? What do you do on an attachment level? How do you help with interpretation? These sorts of things. So they know exactly how it's going to go. So that's the fun part right now is I'm into that section. And then a second project I'm writing with a good friend of mine, Dr. Barry Corey. He's the president of Biola University, and it's a book on the burdens of leadership, how leaders, as they say, is lonely at the top, right? We have, a leadership program here at the Institute, and you guys run it. And so the things about being exposed to the public and the judgment you get from others and the demands and the finances and isolation. So we've got a book about how those are realities, no matter what sphere, nonprofit, for-profit you're in, entrepreneur, corporate, whatever, and how to deal with those sort of universal leadership burdens.
Wow. That's awesome. Two awesome projects that you have in the works that I know are really going to go on to help influence the work that not just our students at our institute, but hopefully those outside of it will continue to do. So excited to see it come to fruition. And don't forget the coloring book, though. Don't
Oh,
forget.
man. Well, John, as we end this today, I mean, this has been truly gold. I've been taking a lot of notes here, but what is your tip that you would like everyone to walk away with today after talking about this process and going through it and all?
Write something. Don't let the perfectionistic monster say, well, it's got to be, it was the best of times, it's the worst of times. Oh, mine's not that good. Don't do that. Tell the perfectionistic monster to go take a bath. Write something, and it might sound like gobbledygook, but the brain loves movement, and the brain's
Yes,
happy if there's something down there because now the editing and making it better is so much easier than the blank screen. Write something.
I like that. Write something. Very
There you
wise.
go. You heard it here from best-selling author John Townsend. Thanks so much for your time here today, John. We appreciate it, and good luck wrapping up those next projects.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoy the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website at cui.edu/Townsend to find out more about the certificates, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University, Irvine. With programs in mental health counseling, executive coaching and consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all the while furthering your competence, character, and connection. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.
So John, I guess you're kind of saying if we want to go to I mean, we should go to a good hotel, right? We should probably do the montage in Laguna Beach if we're really gonna write a really good book, huh?
I think if I was in the montage, I would just get massages all day. I'm not sure I could
That's
dance.
true. I don't know how. Yeah, maybe it needs to be not the best hotel. Huh?
That's
So.
too funny. Oh my goodness.